The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauley to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. And tonight I'll be back on at 6 for the Just Help One radio show and podcast presented by the Union Rescue Mission. I'll be back on there this evening with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, along with other special guests. So stay tuned tonight in the 6 o'clock hour as well, right here on 790 KBC. Right now, we're live, streaming live online worldwide at KBC.com, and you're on demand, Motec the Money podcast, KBC.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. Mixed finish for stocks today, with the tech names pulling back while blue chip stocks moved higher. The NASDAQ coming in for a closing loss today of 104 points, settling at 23,480. The Dow nearly 300 at 49,266. And the S&P 500 managed to hold on to a closing gain of a half point at 6,921. The yield in the 10-year note at 4.17%. And what was a bit of a rocky session today, defense names moved higher after President Trump announced he wants to boost military spending by 50% to $1.5 trillion a year. The defense names have taken a hit yesterday on discussions to possibly block share buybacks and dividend payments by U.S. defense companies if they did not invest in ramping up weapons operations. We did see shares of Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin moving higher. Venezuela last weekend, maybe Iran this weekend. Cities in Iran erupt in upheaval over Iran's weakening currency and political upheaval after decades of Islamic rule. I'll discuss what's happening in the Middle East today with Middle East expert Dan Raviv, former network news correspondent, author of numerous books, including his latest, Target Iran and Spies Against Armageddon. He also hosts the podcast, The Mossad Files. Dan Raviv will be joining me live later this hour. Wall Street taking in the latest readings on the private payrolls and another government report that found anemic rates in hiring. All of this ahead of the big enchilada of monthly economic reports. It'll be coming out first thing tomorrow morning. That'll be the December jobs report from the Labor Department. Coming up later this hour, I'll be speaking live with prominent Los Angeles area economist Kevin Klowden, executive director at Milken Institute Finance at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica, discussing the outlook for the economy as well as the one-year anniversary of the fire disaster here in Southern California and the ongoing recovery efforts. Alphabet Google officially overtaking Apple as the second most valuable company in the world. That is big news. Apple now behind Alphabet. Alphabet widening its lead today as shares in that name ticked up about 1%, putting it at $3.94 trillion market cap above Apple's $3.84 trillion at the close. Also, a lot of discussion here on NVIDIA's dominance in the computing world coming into question. Alphabet might start selling a product to rival NVIDIA's, and custom TPUs could replace NVIDIA's GPUs in some applications. And let's talk about that and all things tech and the market overall. Let's say Happy New Year now to Dan Ives, who's had a big day and a big week. He was at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas earlier this week, and today he rang the opening bell on Wall Street in celebration of the Dan Ives Wedbush AI Revolution Exchange Traded Fund. The ticker symbol on that one is Ives. Dan Ives, Managing Director and Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush Securities, which happens to be headquartered here in Southern California. The world's most prominent Wall Street tech analyst, also known as the best-dressed guy on Wall Street. Dan Ives, thank you very much. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for taking the call on your big day today.
Yeah, it was great. Frank, it's great to be with you, and just such an awesome day being near a stock exchange, ringing the bell, Ives hitting $1 trillion. When you think about the AI revolution, the multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, they hit $1 billion in 6 months. Just so exciting.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you, first of all, what was it like ringing the opening bell on Wall Street today?
It's like, Frank, I've spent so much of my career in New York Stock Exchange, and I've been at bell ringings before, but obviously to have Ives and Wedbush, and if you go back to Ed Wedbush, mid-50s, then you say L.A. legend. It was so exciting because to me it's really what I view as the confidence that investors have around the world in us when it comes to AI. And it's just, I just view it as the start. It's just so exciting. I thought you were going to be there with your $2,000 suit, but you weren't. I was disappointed.
Well, you did a great job there. You didn't need me there today, but we honor the memory of Ed Wedbush, a blessed memory. Of course, his name is on the building there in downtown Los Angeles, and for many, many years he was a frequent guest on this program, so we honor his memory. He was a terrific guy and the founder of Wedbush, and God bless him. And so you were there, but before that, you were at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas.
Yep.
Making news with the big names there. Give us an update on what happened there.
I mean, to me, being with Jensen and NVIDIA, I think, that really kicks it off. Look, I think this is the year of physical AI, autonomous and robotics. Me and you have talked about it a lot. I think that's why I think Tesla it's going to be a golden year for them on the autonomous side. I think NVIDIA Street is not factoring in physical AI, autonomous robotics into the valuation. And I think this is really the next chapter of AI that's coming to the consumer in 2026.
All right. There's talk now that will Alphabet, Google overtake NVIDIA at some point? There have been some write-ups about that and making big moves into the AI world.
I mean, look, I love Google. It's been one of our favorites, but there's a better chance of me in the NFL playoffs playing than them overtaking NVIDIA. I mean, look, there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution, and it's led by Godfather of AI, Jensen NVIDIA. And I think, Frank, NVIDIA is 4 to 5 years ahead of any other chip player. But look, AMD is going to be a huge player. You could argue even Intel. Obviously, Google, what OpenAI is doing, it's an AI revolution. But we've said it's 10:30 p.m. in the AI party. Party goes to 4 a.m.
All right, Google moving up, Apple moving down the list of most valuable companies. What about Apple and its move, if any, in a bigger way into AI?
I mean, look, to me, this is going to be the year that Apple fully dives into the deep end of the pool in AI. I think in the spring they're going to announce a huge partnership with Google. And you talk about monetization. I think it's worth $75 to $100 a share for Apple as they kind of head down that path. And that's one of the reasons it's one of our top tech picks for 2026.
Let's talk about that, and let's talk about your ETF. What's in that ETF, and what are your top picks for the new year?
Yeah, I mean, so, these are the Ives AI 30, top 30 names that we believe, in terms of playing the AI revolution. Look, our top 5 names for 2026, it's Tesla, it's Apple, it's Palantir, it's Microsoft, and on cybersecurity, it's CrowdStrike. I mean, those to me are really the ones that stick out.
See you tonight. Read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motec on Money, live on the air with Daniel Ives at Wedbush, who rang the opening bell on Wall Street today. And it's hard to ignore gold and silver. Getting back to the analog world here for just a moment, gold and silver at or near all-time highs here. Silver was above $80 a barrel this week. Gold getting close to its all-time high, was above $4,500. What about the good old precious metals here?
I mean, look, I think the path continues to be much higher for gold and silver. Like, Frank, I don't see. I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens. As I believe, Fed's going to ultimately cut in 2026, especially with the new, Fed chair that's going to be much more dovish. But to me, the path is still higher for gold and silver in 2026. I don't believe that stops.
All right. What's going to happen tomorrow with the jobs report? Any surprises expected with the big enchilada of monthly economic reports?
No, I think you're seeing stabilization there. I still believe the path for the Fed is cutting, as we go into next few months. And then ultimately, you get a power placement that gets announced probably in the next month, and that's going to be much more dovish. That continues to be the theme here as it plays out.
All right, and you also have a presence in the crypto world with a company focused on WorldCoin. You're also the chairman of 8Co Holdings, which is also very interesting with authentication for make sure we're talking to a human being. I have a feeling I'm talking to Dan Ives here, but with Orbs, maybe we can double check that. Tell us more about Orbs, 8Co Holdings, and WorldCoin.
I thought I was talking to the legend Frank Motek, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's an actual robot that looks like Frank, right? I mean, so you never know. Look, Frank, this is just as we've talked about in terms of like human proof authentication. When you think about the AI revolution, this continues to be the next phase. It's going to play a huge part of the stack in terms of authentication on enterprise, on the consumer. And it speaks to our whole thesis. That's why at Orbs, we're just so excited about WorldCoin and this whole path that we see with the AI revolution, and this playing a huge role.
All right, we've seen some wild predictions on where Bitcoin goes this year and in the decades ahead. I don't know if you had a chance to take some of those predictions in, but what about Bitcoin and the crypto space? Where do you see a Bitcoin go this year?
150,000 this year. That's sort of our view where this goes in terms of. Look, Frank, I think right now we've gone through a consolidation and digestion period. I think Bitcoin the past higher as well as the past higher for Ethereum.
What's your prediction on Ethereum?
10 to 12,000, 15,000 long term. That's sort of that's the view on Ethereum, and I think anyone that thinks that we've seen some sort of crypto winner or whatever, I believe that it's been more of a consolidation, maybe a margin play that's sort of played out, but I think it's temporary. I don't see, to me, I think the path is much higher for Bitcoin as well as Ethereum.
Is it supply and demand? What's the catalyst for these predictions for it to go that high?
I mean, to me, it's a supply perspective and an institutional interest. And you see more and more ETFs, and you're going to see this become what I view more a part of portfolios. This is not some sort of like, off the grid type investment. I think this is something that eventually is going to play a role in portfolio management for the coming decades. And it's our view, too, in terms of Bitcoin currency, you're eventually going to see some sort of Bitcoin reserve in the United States as well.
All right, what about your buddy Michael Saylor and Strategy, which has had a bumpy ride in recent weeks, moving higher today? What about some of these ancillary crypto-related equities?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a bumpy ride in terms of the Saylor and MicroStrategy. But look, I'm a core believer everything Saylor's doing, just like I'm a core believer in what Tom Lee's doing at Bitminer. I mean, I think this is just you're going through a digestion period onto the next stage of growth. And I think when you look at the path for Strategy, I think it's much higher. I just think this is one, counting Saylor out is the wrong move in my opinion.
It looked like you had fun at the Consumer Electronics Show. Did you have a chance to play with any of the gadgets, anything that got your attention this time around?
Yeah, the flying car from Xpeng, that to me is what's really sticking out. Flying cars that we're going to see by 2028. But I think it's really about robotics, friends. Robotics is here. This is not some sort of Jetsons moment. I mean, robots are coming in the next 12 to 18 months, and especially humanoid robotics, that's really front and center.
Any particular names in the flying car world
or
robotics?
Robotic SCRV, Serve Robotics, that's a name that we're very bullish on, and I was very impressed by everything that we saw at Serve.
Any other specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Look, Frank, it's my view, like, I think we're going to have not just another year of the tech bull market, tech stocks up 20-25%. I think stocks could rip over the next 4 to 6 weeks as investors realize that this spending trend that we're seeing on enterprise, the ripple effect that's playing out across financials, energy, and healthcare, that's a bull market. As I always say, like, look, the bears are going to watch this AI party through the windows. They're going to go up, read a book, eat some potato chips in their hotel room. The Bulls and the Bears meet up at 6 a.m. The Bulls have a lot better night than the Bears.
Where are you off to next?
Next will be Davos. I'll be at Davos, World Economic Forum, Switzerland. So that'll be my next trip next week, a week from Sunday.
Expect a call. Expect a call, Dan. So thank you.
I will be doing a call, and also Frank, I got some new some colored snow gear too. I can't wait to show it to you.
Oh, good. Well, we'll send some photos and we'll post them here as well. Dan, you're a prince for coming on your big day on Wall Street, and what a week! Congratulations on all this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the call here.
You're the best. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You are Dan Ives, Managing Director and Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush Securities, based right here in Southern California. The world's most prominent Wall Street tech analyst, also known as the best-dressed guy on Wall Street, by the way, if I haven't already mentioned that. He's also chairman of Eightco Holdings, which the ticker symbol in that one is Orbs. He rang the opening bell on Wall Street today in celebration of the Dan Ives Wedbush AI Revolution ETF. The ticker symbol in that one is Ives.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
The CJ Pearson Show.
I'm CJ Pearson, and I'm the host of The CJ Pearson Show. Every single week, we'll take on the biggest cultural, political, and moral battles in America head on. No spin, no filters, and, well, no apologies. We'll break down the biggest stories shaping our culture from a Gen Z perspective that refuses to be managed, muted, or manipulated. Bold truth, real conviction, zero permission. This isn't punditry. It's a generational takeover. This is The CJ Pearson Show.
The CJ Pearson Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Motaga Money continues, 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Happy New Year. Mixed finish for stocks today with the Dow up 270 points at the bell, back above 49,000 now at 49,266, near its all-time high. The S&P 500 managed to hold on to a closing gain of a half point at 6,921. The NASDAQ sliding 104 points at 23,480. Looks like Google taking center stage today and overtaking Apple as second most valuable company. Google shares at more than $3 at $3.25 and change. Apple down $1.29 at $2.59 and change. Tesla moving higher, as we heard a moment ago from Dan Ives, up more than $4 today at $4.35 and change. Oracle pulling back more than $3 at $1.89 and change. NVIDIA, the magnificent one, down $4.07 at $185.04. Taking a look at precious metals, continuing to hover at or near record highs. Gold up 25 and change now at $4,486 an ounce. Silver up $1.80 at $76.94. Platinum up $12.40 at $2,279 and change. And palladium up more than $28 at $1,826.50 an ounce. The defense names moved higher today, including Lockheed Martin up more than $21 at $5.18 and change. Northrop Grumman up nearly $14 at $5.90.79. Price of oil hovering just about $58 a barrel in New York now. The oil company stocks are rebounded today. We see ExxonMobil up more than $4 at $122.91, and Chevron at more than $4 at $159.25. Taking a look at the cryptos now, we see Bitcoin hovering at just above 91,000, pulling back today. Ethereum at 3,118. Doge at the moment at 14 cents. IBIT down 2 cents at 51.52. Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, that's Michael Saylor's Bitcoin-focused company, at more than $5 at $166.97. Looks like General Motors writing off some more of its EV business, and General Motors shares moving higher today of $3.22 at $85.13. Ford moving up 66 cents at $14.40. GM warning investors it'll record more than $7 billion in charges in the fourth quarter, mostly related to EVs, less than a month after Ford announced its own multi-billion-dollar charges related to fading demand for EVs. Jobs also in focus. We'll be getting the big enchilada, the monthly economic reports, first thing tomorrow morning from the Labor Department. That'll be the December jobs report, which, of course, is key to the Fed's policy decisions. Already today, we got some new readings. Initial jobless claims, the number of people who are in unemployment lines, rose by 8,000 to 208,000 over the past week, and private employers brought on 41,000 new positions in December, according to the latest private payroll processor report from ADP that came out this morning. Moteca Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. A year ago this time, wind-whipped flames were devastating homes and businesses in the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. We marked the one-year anniversary of the firestorm yesterday, and what was a day of remembrance. A year after the firestorm caused at least 31 deaths, destroyed thousands of homes and businesses. In fact, about 17,000 structures were lost, in an area burned in the Palisades and Malibu is actually larger than the area of Manhattan. The economic impact has also been significant and ongoing. The frustration over the painful, slow pace of recovery also significant. Joining us live now is prominent Los Angeles area-based economist Kevin Klowden, fellow at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica. Kevin Klowden, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank, even if it is on a most unfortunate anniversary.
Indeed it is, and Happy New Year to you and everyone there at the Milken Institute, and wanted to get your assessment here 1 year later of the economic impact of all this and where things stand at this point.
Well, unfortunately, even though there have been some amazing efforts, obviously, the efforts led by Rick Caruso, the efforts led by the Community Foundation, by a variety of different actors at the city and county and other levels, the fact remains that we're very, very far from being rebuilt from these absolutely devastating fires, and that there are tons of homeowners who are out there whose homes have not been able to be rebuilt, either because the money available doesn't cover everything, because the cleanup hasn't proceeded quite the rate they want to, because dealing with all the bureaucracy is too hard, any of those. And that means that if you can't rebuild those houses, if you can't rebuild the community centers and the businesses, that it's very hard to feel like we've really recovered.
You're very close with the LA Area Chamber. What are you hearing at this point from business people as well as residents here on what absolutely has to get done at this point of these permits and all these other hurdles that are blocking the recovery at this point?
Well, there's some of it, I think, is a frustration on who's in charge. One of the things about Altadena that is a struggle is because it's an unincorporated area that belongs to the county. So in some respects, there isn't that city-level bureaucracy, but it also means that you don't have city-level officials who can necessarily step in and coordinate and resolve some issues. And so in some ways, I've been hearing some, more innovative approaches. The community's been able to step in a bit more on Altadena, but on the other hand, a tremendous level of frustration. There also is this sense as well in terms of, what is the sort of the lack of leadership coming in from the federal government, in part because, the Department of Homeland Security oversees FEMA and has been very deliberately moving resources and expertise out of disaster recovery, and a lot of the people who used to be there, who are experts in recovery management are either gone or diverted to other key areas of interest for Department of Homeland Security. And that void is definitely there. I mean, if you contrast to what happened, say, in the Paradise Fire recovery and various recoveries that happened President Trump's first term with President Newsom, there was a lot more clarity. I mean, wasn't always there, but there was at least more of a sense of who was playing what role. And for Palisades, that part is also still there. And so mostly it's a case of really of impatience of saying, like, who do we still need to deal with? Who needs to intervene on that? And for businesses, the ripple effects aren't just in those immediate neighborhoods. The number of businesses that I've heard complain and raise issues are ones in places, like Pasadena or in Santa Monica, where they're very much tied into those residential communities, and they haven't recovered from the loss of customers.
This is the worst disaster of all. You've been here for many disasters over the years. How would you rate the response to this one compared to others? For the Northridge earthquake, probably the next biggest disaster that this area has faced, but it seems like the urgency and the mobilization and the will to get things done faster was much greater back in those days than it is now. Do you share that impression as well?
Well, I think that with the Northridge earthquake, the main advantage was that it was, and this is not an advantage really, but the main thing that helped was that there are a few very specific things that people could focus on. And because of the fact that it was destruction coming from just one factor in one way, and that there wasn't the same level of toxic cleanup that you have, except where some fires were triggered by the Northridge quake, it was a lot easier to sort of assess it. And because of the fact that you hadn't seen a whole bunch of the issues that had developed around fire exposure and fire risk and insurance companies fleeing the state in advance of Northridge quake, of course, lots of companies immediately cashed out and got out of earthquake policies after that quake, but that's a different story. But it meant that there weren't as many blurred lines. It was a little bit easier to be able to focus. And there are some things where it's very clear that the state and the city were able to say, okay, this is a priority. Famously, the recovery of the section of the Santa Monica Freeway, for example, which was actively reopened in a matter of weeks. And that was a triumph, and it would be great if there was something that simple or straightforward that we're seeing here. And yes, some roadways, they've made a point, but even the Coast Highway, it's taken a lot longer. There's been a lot harder path to be able to do this. So, for everybody, it is incredibly frustrating. And because of the scale and the multiple different locations affected, we haven't seen, say in comparison to like the past Malibu fires, a very real sense of, okay, here's the specific area, here's the specific plan, and just having that narrower focus. I think that there's a lot more going on, including the recognition that this will happen again. But that also means that people's frustration with the fact that they need it done right, and they need it done right now so that the next time this happens, we're ready, is really sitting in everybody's minds.
What about the local economy? What's your outlook for this year, and what does the rebuilding effort ahead of the Olympics mean for the economy?
Well, it definitely creates an additional impetus, and the fact is that we've got World Cup games coming this year. There is a sense that you look at some of the infrastructure delays that have been happening more broadly in Los Angeles, including, rather notoriously the people mover at the airport. And there is this question about, can we really be ready in the same way that we were even in 94? And in 94, it's worth remembering that a lot of that relied on the 84 Olympic construction efforts that were still around and some modernizations that had sort of been built up. But this time around, we're looking at a much bigger scale, especially when the Olympics come around, more events, more venues, more everything. And there is a very real need for people to step up and get things done quickly. For everybody who is listening, if you remember any of the stories coming out of Paris, there's a mad scramble in a number of cases to get venues ready for the Paris Olympics in 2024. And nobody really wants to see that happening and have those stories being reported around, in all over for Los Angeles. And so that is important. I think for the economy, the good news is that there seems to be a certain amount right now, more stability in general. I mean, not just because we're a year out from the fire and we're, further past from the entertainment strikes, but a lot of times people are still looking for all that recovery. They're looking for the entertainment productions to really ramp back up, given the expanded incentives. People are looking for construction to really ramp up and benefit as part of the recovery efforts. And also, just looking for global trade. As we talked last time, there had been some more increased port activity. The hope is that can build more if there's this not a sense of any of the tariff environment being changed more. If there's not, and people have predictability, then the local economy should be doing better.
On the live with Kevin Klowden, and one final question here. With the stock market at or near record highs here, that's considered a forward-looking mechanism. Briefly, what is your outlook for 2026 on the economy, and are we in the roaring 20s here? Give us your thoughts about how this year could unfold.
Well, the big thing that we're looking at that is raising a lot of questions is the diverging nature of it. The K-shaped economy, where the last GDP numbers were very impressive, but they were largely being driven by high-end spending, luxury market, so on, and there's still a lot of word coming out in terms of what the middle and working class were spending during the holidays and leading up to that. So what we really need to see is a more robust situation for everybody in the economy, because right now that issue in terms of having things being led both by in terms of high-end spending and in terms of being led by tech, a lot of that's really dependent right now on that interest rates stay low there or they get lower, the idea that there's a ton of available credit, and that sales are continuing to grow. But we all, but one thing that came out of CES was, for example, that NVIDIA announced they don't have any new graphics cards coming this year, and partly because maybe they haven't developed a new one that helps to drive, the GPUs that are needed in a lot of the AI and data centers. But part of it also were supply chain constraints.
Yep.
And we need to be able to figure out is if those supply chain constraints are there, that means that the tech growth, that means a lot of the expectations that people are looking for can't really happen. And so we need to just be a little bit more cautious and say, can we get through those barriers?
Very important points, and we'll follow all this with you closely. And then, of course, the Supreme Court's supposed to rule on tariffs, so I'm sure we'll be doing a lot on that once that comes down. And so a lot of wild cards certainly out there, too. Kevin, thank you very much for kicking off the new year with that assessment. That is prominent Los Angeles area-based economist Kevin Klowden, fellow at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica. Happy New Year to everybody there. Kevin, thank you very much for taking the call.
My pleasure, and Happy New Year to everyone.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauly to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
American Skyjacker tells the story of D.B. Cooper copycat Martin McNally, who hijacked a plane and jumped out with $500,000. But that's just the start of this epic true crime saga. Now, American Skyjacker is an action-packed documentary available on all major platforms. Go to AmericanSkyjacker.com to subscribe to the podcast and watch the film, and look out for a new bonus episode of the podcast coming soon. American Skyjacker. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Motek on Money continues. 790 KBC was Venezuela last weekend, and maybe Iran will be in focus this weekend as cities in Iran erupt in upheaval this week over Iran's weakening currency and political upheaval after decades of Islamic rule. We're also following the latest reports out of Iran. Iran reportedly has been plunged now into a nationwide internet blackout as anti-regime protests intensify there, restricting communication across Iran as demonstrations enter their second week, and the death toll in Iran reportedly reaches 44. Joining us live now, following all these developments very closely, is Middle East expert Dan Raviv, former network news correspondent, author of numerous books, including his latest, Target Iran and Spies Against Armageddon. He also hosts the podcast, The Mossad Files. Dan Raviv, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's a sure thing, Frank. And what timing. I know there's a huge community in your home base, Los Angeles, of people who used to live in Iran or the children of Iranian exiles who left that country when the Islamic Republic was established in 1979. And they've been waiting for weeks like this, right, from time to time.
You're absolutely right. And let me present the latest reports we're getting. Indeed, Iran has been plunged into a nationwide internet blackout as the Khomeini regime protests intensify, and we're watching the latest reports here. Today also, President Trump made some comments about what's happening with Iran in an interview with you today, again warning the regime if they start killing people that they will be hit very hard. He was asked, the president was asked if he had a message for the Iranian people today. The president said, "You should feel strongly about freedom. There's nothing like freedom. You're brave people." That's President Trump's message to the people of Iran today. The State Department's Persian feed on X also restated his warning from his interview about the regime in Farsi. Dan Raviv, give us your assessment of what's happening in Iran at the moment.
Yeah, I think this is really serious. Years ago, the United States government was accused by many of the anti-Islamic Republic demonstrators of not doing enough. The Obama administration didn't do enough. It's clear to me that the Trump administration wants to be openly and clearly in favor of the protesters on the streets. President Trump has said that if people are going to be shot by the regime, the U.S. would intervene. And as you reported, Frank, there are dozens of dead people at the hands of the regime. And so I feel that there is U.S. support. It's not being specified. Could be the CIA or more. I don't think it'll be exactly like Venezuela with the leaders being kidnapped. But if you combine Israeli support and U.S. support for the protesters, it is possible that this time key leaders of the regime might be on the run from Iran, Frank.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motek on Money on 790 KBC, live on the air with Dan Raviv. In the meantime, we've been hearing from the Shah of Iran's son, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the Shah of Iran, calling for more anti-regime protest. What do you see his role in all of this?
Yeah, I've been really surprised because a few years ago I would have told you that the pro-democracy protesters, including many university students in Iran, did not want a return of the late Shah or his son, who mostly lives in the United States. But this week we've been seeing the royal flag of Iran going up amidst many of the street protests in Tehran, in Mashhad, in Bandar Abbas, and other cities in Iran. It's very impressive. I think that Reza Pahlavi is playing his role very well, broadcasting into Iran. I know he wants a meeting with President Trump. Today there was a public statement by Trump that said, well, I'm not sure meeting the Shah's son is the right step, but we'll see in the coming days if that actually does occur to show U.S. support.
Very interesting. In the meantime, the Iranian economy is collapsing. All of this, of course, following what happened last year, which we were on the air talking about, when Israel and the United States destroyed Iran's nuclear program. Any updates on what's happening with that? And what about the collapse of the Iranian rial, the national currency of Iran?
As always, a great question, Frank, and I've been speaking with people in Israel, experts in Israel, as to whether Iran's regime is truly damaged or might be rebuilding its missile forces, rebuilding even its nuclear program. And Israel was hoping that President Trump would give Israel the go-ahead to bomb Iran again if that would happen, a missile and a nuclear program. But the Israelis were saying, not yet. The Iranian government and military seem to be kind of confused since the war last June. And so there's a lot of hope that this time the regime is going to crack. I don't know what's next. I don't know who would take over. And of course, the regime has survived a lot of protests in the past by brutally coming down, arresting thousands, and frankly, executing people, innocent or otherwise. I expect a really big crackdown. But right now in the streets of Tehran and other cities, it's really going against the regime, Frank.
And all of this, of course, following the takeout of Venezuela's leader. Venezuela was close to Iran, right? What about that aspect in all this?
Yeah, you're quite right. Iran's been losing influence all around the world, whether it was its friend in the Western Hemisphere, the Maduro regime in Venezuela, or, of course, Hezbollah in Lebanon and the president of Syria who was overthrown. So, again, Iran has been doing really badly. Its economy is a huge mess, and the Trump administration said it would bring back tough sanctions and try to weaken the Islamic Republic of Iran. I think we see that playing out, Frank.
We'll keep an open line to you. Dan Raviv, thank you very much for taking the call here. That is Dan Raviv, Middle East expert, former network news correspondent, author of numerous books. His latest, Target Iran. He also wrote Spies Against Armageddon, and be sure to catch his podcast, The Mossad Files, which is excellent. Dan Raviv, again, thank you very much for taking the call.
My privilege. Thanks.
790 KABC, Los Angeles.
The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.